Hey guys, it's Faith and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing a very different kind of video. I just felt God was telling me to make this video. My cat's tail. He's so weird. Anyway, I felt like God was telling me to make this video, so I made me a cup of coffee, got me some notes out, got the Bible out, and I am ready to go. So, and I'm wearing glasses because I need them to read, so that's why I had them on. But today I'm going to be talking about waiting upon God's promises to be fulfilled. So my husband preached last night, and today is Friday, but this probably won't be going up until like Sunday or Saturday. So yeah. But my husband preached and he talked about waiting upon the Lord and his timing, and all things will be put into place in his perfect timing. And that really spoke to me because I had problems waiting upon the Lord in my own walk with Christ. Like, we get impatient and we just have these promises that God has made us, and we don't see them fulfilled within like a week or 2 weeks or even like a year or so. And the longer it takes for them to be fulfilled, I feel like the weaker our faith gets, which should not happen, because we should have the faith knowing that if God made that promise, he's going to come through. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be next year, it may not be 5 years from now, but he will come through on it. So I feel like we get discouraged a lot of the times when we shouldn't, but we do. So today, God has put a story up on my heart in the Bible, and that is the story of Abraham and Sarah, and the promise God made to her that she was going to bring forth a son. I'm going to explain to you through the story and all the things that happen with it, and then hopefully you guys can relate to that. But if you guys can't, I'm going to kind of share with you guys some of my own stories that I've had and some of my own experiences that I went through and things. And so yeah, let's just get into it. So, we're going to start off by reading in Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 through 4, and I'm just going to read them here. I read the King James Version, but if you guys don't, it's okay. I'll try my best. I'm just going to explain it. I'm going to read it, and then I'll explain it, break it down into the most simplest terms that I can, because I know a lot of people have trouble understanding all of the wordiness that is in the King James Version. And if you haven't been raised reading the King James Version, I can understand how it can be difficult to read sometimes. But I'm just going to read through it, and then I'll explain it, and then I have some more scripture that I'm going to read. So, I'm going to start off in Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 through 4. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went into... I cannot read out loud, like I have an issue. Anyway, verse 4 says, And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. So, I struggled a bit there reading. I sometimes struggle. I have a few notes here that I'm going to read to you guys. And yeah, so we're just going to talk about it. So Genesis 16:1 speaks about how Sarah couldn't give Abram any children, but she had an Egyptian maid whose name was Hagar who could possibly do so. And then you go on to verse 2, and it says Sarah, this isn't what it says, but this is basically what it means. And Sarah told Abram that the Lord has restrained her or kept her from being able to bear children or have children. But she says, Go unto my maid so that I could possibly bear children through her. So here we find that Sarah has told Abram that you need to go sleep with my maid so that I could possibly give you children through her. Basically what that says. And then you go on to verse 4. No, verse 3, my bad, I'm sorry. Sarah took Hagar, her Egyptian maid, and gave her to Abram. So she takes Hagar and gives her to Abram to be his like wife, basically just so that he could sleep with her and bear a child. That's basically all they wanted to do. All Sarah had in mind was for Abram to get a child from Hagar. That was her goal. And Abram went to Hagar and they conceived a child. So Abram went unto Hagar like Sarah told him to, and they conceived a son. So that's all of what happened. You know, Sarah wanted a son. She couldn't give Abram a son. And so she took Hagar, her Egyptian maid, and said, here, sleep with him, and you sleep with her, and blah. And that's what happened. That's in simplest terms, that's all basically what happened. So I read the verses to you guys and I explained it basically, but that's what happened basically. Coffee break. Coffee's good, coffee's good. Anyway, so if you read before this, the promise that has already been made to Abram that there's going to be an heir to him, that he will have a son. But Sarah gets ahead of God and tells Abram to go and sleep with Hagar. That's where the whole mess begins. And I'm not going to read anymore, but I'm just going to explain what happens. So the son that is conceived from Hagar and Abram is named Ishmael. And from Ishmael comes this mighty nation that is going to be at war with the nation that comes up from Isaac from generations and generations on and is still at war. From Isaac came the Israelites, and from Ishmael came the Islams. So we see where that comes and the problem that came into hand from Sarah getting ahead of God. So there's that quick nugget. Now moving on to chapter 18, because I don't really want to get into all of that. But chapter 18, I'm just going to read verses 9 through 11. So it says, and they said unto him, where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So there were these three men that came to Abraham, and they were like, and they were basically angels, and you know, it was God basically, and they were like, where is Sarah, your wife? And he was like, she's in the tent. And then he's like, well, you know, I'm gonna give Sarah a son. And Sarah hears this, overhears them. She's standing in like the tent door and hears it through there. And so now she heard that, and you later read on that they are well stricken in age, which means that they're very, very old, and Sarah's way past the age to be conceiving a child. So there's that. And if you read on further, Sarah laughs, and I don't think Sarah laughs in like a mocking way towards God, but in kind of like a disbelief, like, really, like, God, no, that's not possible because I'm like really old, and like not gonna happen. And then you read on to verse 14, and it says, is anything too hard for the Lord? That just really speaks to me, because when God makes us promises, a lot of the times we end up like Sarah. We're like, is that really gonna happen, God? But is anything really too hard for the Lord? The answer is no. And I feel like that's the problem we have a lot of the times, is that we doubt, because in our human fleshly eyes, that's too hard. But through God, anything is possible. So nothing is too hard for God, and I think that's where we mess up a lot of the times, because we try to think things logically through, and logic, I don't feel like, is in God's mind. Like, it's just not there. Because logically, a woman who is like 100 years old, she wasn't 100, but she was like 80 something, I think. I know I've heard it 1,000 times how old she was, but I can't think of it right now off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure she was in her 80s. Logically, women who are in her 80s do not have the ability to get pregnant and have a baby. It just doesn't happen. So logically speaking, that doesn't happen. Anyway, getting back on the actual topic that I'm talking about, which that kind of goes hand in hand, it really does. But as we see, Sarah did not wait upon the Lord. Sarah took things into her own hands, and out of that came a war between her son Isaac and Ishmael, and that war has lasted for generations and generations. And also, I feel like she also had to deal with grief because she gave her husband to another woman so that he could have a child, so that she could have a child through them. I don't see myself ever being able to give my husband away to another woman because I can't have a baby. So obviously Sarah was very, very desperate at this point, and she was not relying on God. She would have been relying on God, she would have waited, and she wasn't. She was doubting. She did not have faith at this point, and she took things into her own hands, and out of that came a lot of grief and a lot of sorrow, because I feel like if you watch your husband go live with another woman that you have told her to do so, deep down you're not really okay with that. And I don't feel like Sarah was utterly and completely okay with doing that. So I feel like she had to deal with that, and then the problem that came out of Ishmael and everything. There was just a lot of consequences that she had to pay that a lot of people don't really think about, like emotionally thinking, like, my husband has laid with this woman, you know, like and I know in biblical days people had multiple wives and multiple this, but at this point Sarah was Abraham's wife, and she willingly told him to go lay with this other woman so that he could have a baby, and I don't think I could ever really do that without having some grief and sorrow, putting myself in her shoes. But if she would have been relying on God, she wouldn't have had to do that. She really wouldn't have had to do that. So there's that. Like 5 years later, she finally gives birth to Isaac, the actual promised seed of God to Abraham and Sarah. So if she would have just waited a little bit longer, she would have received that promise that God had for her. But because she got impatient and because she could not wait upon the Lord, she took matters into her own hands and had to deal with sorrows and grief that she wouldn't have had to deal with if she would have waited for the promise of God to be fulfilled in his timing and his will. So there's that story of Abraham and Sarah. It took a little bit longer. Now I'm going to share some of my experiences of my own. One major experience is my husband, Dakota. So waiting for him was not easy at all. So like, God had promised me a husband, and I knew that he was going to give me my husband in his own time. But I was just like, you know, dating looks great. Dating looks fun. Why not? I mean, I'm young. Might as well. So I dated this one guy, and he was like, no one ever trusts me, but I've gotten right with the Lord, and you know, I just wish someone would give me a chance. And I was like, okay. He just really wanted me to give him a chance. So I did the stupid thing and I gave him a chance. And I really wish I wouldn't have, because he cheated on me within the first week of dating him. And the thing is that I didn't really get a lot of heartache from that relationship, because there really wasn't much of a relationship because it lasted like a week. But there was 2 other relationships that I was in prior to meeting my husband that did affect me and that did have a bad impact on me. And one of them was the summer before my freshman year of high school. This guy walked up to me after seeing me perform in the talent show at school, and he was like, you're really good and blah 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 blah, and he gave me his number and we started texting and everything. And here's the thing, I made a list when I was like 14 of qualities and things that I wanted in my husband, and physical attributes aren't that important to me, but they kind of were. And it was green eyes, sandy blonde hair, 5'9" to 5'11", like 5'9" to 5'11", then like nice teeth and just different things like that. And this guy had dark brown hair, dark brown eyes, and was not 5'9" or 5'11". So based off of the list that I made and I had prayed over, I shouldn't have been dating him, but I did anyway. And he ended up cheating on me as well. So go me. I obviously have a bad streak going. Anyway, so then I don't date anybody until February of my freshman year. I meet this guy in church. So I'm like, it's a church guy. Yeah, here we go. And I thought he was just like to die for handsome. And he had dark brown eyes and dark brown hair and was not 5'9" or 5'11". And just because he was in church, I was like, this might work. Like, I could be one of those people that meet their husband when they're like 16 and they're like high school sweethearts and blah, 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 blah. No, I wasn't. He ended up texting me one day and was like, it's not working out. I'm sorry, it's not you, it's me. I hope that we can still be friends. Like, one day out of the blue, I didn't see it coming. I didn't know anything was wrong. It just happened. And the reason why I'm telling all of this to you, hopefully young girls are listening or something, don't give your heart away. Because if God has promised you something, God has a husband picked out for you. I know he does. God had a husband picked out for me, and he had promised me a husband. And I knew that he was going to send me one. But I was not willing to wait. I got impatient and I was young and stupid. I was young and stupid, and I was not willing to wait. So I ended up with a lot of heartache and a lot of sorrow and a lot of pain that I could have avoided if I would have just waited. Because when I was 17, in October, it was October 17th, me and my now husband started talking. We messaged over Instagram, and then we got each other's numbers, and I just fell in love with him. And because, I mean, I believe that love at first sight is real, because when we first had our first date, I knew that he was the one. He had green eyes. He's like 5'11", I think. Yeah, so he has sandy brown hair, sandy blonde, brown, whatever you want to call it, hair. He has amazing teeth. He has the most humble personality about him. He is selfless, he loves the Lord, and he is just amazing, and he treats me like a princess. And so if I would have just waited, I could have avoided all that heartache and went into this relationship with a clear, like, just no baggage that I had from recent relationships. Because after I went through those relationships, like, I wouldn't even accept Dakota's friend request on Facebook, because I'm like, it's a stupid guy. I'm not dealing with guys anymore. Like, I'm done. I'll just be single for the rest of my life. And my mom actually accepted his friend request for me, because she was like, no, you have to, like, meet people and get out of my house. No, I'm just kidding. She didn't do that. But she did end up accepting his friend request for me because I refused to. So that's that. And so I went through all of that heartache and suffering for, like, no reason. I didn't have to go through it if I would have just waited upon the Lord and waited for his promise to be fulfilled in his timing and his will. I can't speak. It's probably the coffee. But if you guys get anything from this video, I want you to know that even if God has made a promise to you and it hasn't happened yet, do not lose hope. Do not lose sight of the promises of the Lord, because there's nothing too hard for the Lord, and he will come through and he will show up for you. So do not doubt in him and do not give up, because he is a faithful God, because he has a plan and a will that will play out in his timing. So do not lose hope. So do not give up, because I assure you, your promise will be fulfilled eventually. So with all of that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know by giving it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below if you're new to my channel. And oh yeah, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. It's @officialfaithrose. And don't forget that you guys are fearfully and wonderfully made, and I love you guys so very much, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.